All right, I think you guys can hear me. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm assuming so. Okay. We'll just wait a second just to make sure everything's up and running okay. All right, sweet. So welcome guys to our second study jam. Today we'll be designing a couple of apps just to get familiar with Android Studio. We have another member of my team here with us today, Brenda, who cannot say enough good things about. She is an experienced programmer and will be showing you some of the great stuff today. So stay tuned for that. But before we do that, I have to quickly mention about the Google Solution Challenge, which is now live. We do have a workshop coming up this Saturday, which will be a design day to help you with your designing of your solutions for the UN challenge. But if you're completely new and you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry, I'll cover it right now. So the Solution Challenge is a software development competition for students all around the world. This year's challenge is being delivered in conjunction with the UN, and the goal is to develop a solution which addresses one of the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So you can team up with 4 students, you can submit demos of their solution by the end of March, and the top 50 will progress to the next stage. And all you need to do is register with us in our charter, form a team, and start building. And we'll run several workshops between now and March, and this will all be an aid for you to use Google technologies to refine your solution and submit it. So how do you get started with the Google Solution Challenge? Basically, you become a member of our charter, which is the link there. I think the rest of my team will actually link most of this stuff for you guys. Register with the Solution Challenge on Google's webpage, join a Discord server, and write a message in the Find a Team channel and tell us that you've created a team in Discord, and that's literally it. Join us here for our charter, and that's it right there. And so on for today. So if you joined us last week, it's the same prerequisites, and if you're new for this, it's basically if you don't have Android Studio downloaded for today, download it right now because you'll be needing it later. And yeah, so today our first app will be a happy birthday app because apparently it's your birthday or it's your dad's birthday or something. This will be your first app, and it's just to get you in, everything to do with the front end sorted, so that we'll give you a quick overview of Android Studio, layouts, testing images, emulation, and a little bit of resource management as well. And then later on, Brenda will be showing you the dice roller app, which is basically once you click on the button, you'll get a result between 1 and 6 or any number based on the number of sides that the dice has. And this is going to be a little bit more interactive, getting you to code a little bit more in Kotlin and that sort of thing. So without further ado, let's get started. So give me a second just to get my environment set up. So again, if you've got Android Studio downloaded, that's great. You can follow along, or you can do it later on when we've got our jamming session. But right now, I will load up Android Studio. So this is Android Studio. It's an IDE. What's an IDE? Basically, it's a place where you can do all your GUI development, your programming, your syntax checking, and your testing all in one environment, especially Android Studio, and it's really powerful. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to create a new project here, and here is just project templates. Of course, you can, if you were doing an app, say for example Google Maps or something, it would automatically load in some elements for you. But for today, we're just going to use an empty activity, and we're going to call our project up in the name here, happy birthday. All right, so package name is just basically all the contents of your packages, where you're basically where like the name of where your directory is. The save location, you know, you save it wherever you want. We're going to use Kotlin for our study jams this time, and we also for the minimum SDK, which is basically which API for Android you're going to be using. It's preferable to use an earlier version of Android simply because not everyone has a new Android device. Not everyone's using the latest version of Android with it. And this is KitKat, I think it is. Yeah, and I remember the first time I had like a Google Nexus that ran KitKat, that was a while ago. So, but the main reason is to use, so it's more usable by everyone once you publish your app on the Play Store. So we're going to run with that and click finish here. And actually it's opened up a new window. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to close that, maximize this. We're going to wait for Cradle, which is basically just going to handle all your build configurations, loading in dependencies and whatnot. So we're going to wait for that to load. And there we go. So this is Android Studio. And we have two main files that get loaded here. And we have our main activity.kt, which is for Kotlin. And we can find this within our Java folder under our package name, and then main activity.kt. And this is where most of our programming is going to occur. So when you're doing all your Kotlin programming and be bopping away there, this is where the first instance of code actually gets loaded. For my app specifically right now, Brenda, she will be going into this with more detail, but for ours, we're just concerned more about the front end, which is going to be under activity main.xml. So we're going to click on that and have a look, and we can find this under res layout main activity.xml. And what is XML? It's just basically, it's a programming language that gives you kind of like a markup sort of idea that just shows you, it's more for designing, it's more of like a design sort of thing to show you where all your objects are, some properties about them, etc. So this is what XML looks like. We will not be dealing with the code aspect for it right now. I think it's just easier for you guys to get an understanding of what is happening by using the Android Studio's GUI for developing things. Plus, it's a lot nicer. If you want more refined control, of course, you can go into the XML code and program specifically in the XML code. But when it comes to front-end development, it's really nice to have an interactive environment to actually program. So before we actually get into this specific example here, we want to get started with our emulation. So at the top here for right now, I've got one running device, but you should have a drop down here and go to AVD Manager. If you go into AVD Manager, this will show you all your virtual devices. You wouldn't have, if you've just done a fresh install, you won't have anything. So let me delete my last virtual device here. Come on. All right, okay, apparently I'm already running it. So let me delete this. Yep. Okay, so we can have all kinds of virtual devices in Android Studio. This is great. If you're ever into testing and doing web development, you know the pain of trying to run for different browsers and things like that. This makes it really simple to develop your app across multiple different devices, whether it be like a Wear OS device or something like a TV, automation car, or whatever. So we are going to add a phone, and we're going to go for Pixel 3 XL, just because, I mean, you can pick any one of these if you want to, but we're just going to go for Pixel 3 because it sounds cool. We're going to go onto our system image. Here, in the latest, if you're downloaded the latest version of Android Studio, you will have Android 11 downloaded. That's absolutely fine. If you want to try out Lollipop, Marshmallow, or any of the other earlier versions of Android, you can absolutely go ahead and download them. But for today, we're just going to use Android 11. Click Next. We're going to leave all these default options. And these are just basically names and whether you want to boot in landscape or portrait. So it doesn't really matter for us right now. We're just going to leave this in default and click Finish. Okay, so that's us actually created a virtual device. How do we run it? Well, if you go to this little start or launch AVD emulator, this will launch it for you. And this is pretty cool. So it gives you a view of the device here, like a kind of fake emulated view. And this will actually boot into Android. And you can do a multitude of different things like emulating like your webcam to use as a camera and things like that in it. But it's really nice to have like an emulation for your Android device. Actually, later on, I will be using my Android phone, which is here, and loading the app into that and showing you guys how you actually load it into your phone. So, okay, so as you can see, we've put it into our emulation device here, and it operates just like a normal Android phone. I mean, there's nothing more I need to say about that. So I'm just going to minimize this for the time being and close the window. So when you've created an empty project, right, you get greeted with this in your activity main XML under design up the top here. You get greeted with this hello world, and this is just, you know, your simple hello world program that we talked about last week. If we run the app, we can do so by running at the top here with the wee green button, or you can do Shift 10 as it's just highlighted there. And what we, as you'll notice, it won't load instantly because obviously we need to build the application first. And as Windows kindly told me, it's finished. And it loads into our emulated device. And as you can see, we have the hello world. So technically this is your first app, but yeah. So that's not very useful. It's not what we want. It's just like a default. So we're just going to delete that for the time being. And we need to talk about our palette here. So, and there also our constraint layout here as well. So we'll actually start off with the constraint layout. So what is a constraint layout? Basically, within your view here in the main XML, you need some sort of layout to tell Android how your objects are going to be laid out. So as implied by the name layout. And there's different kinds of layouts. We're going to be talking about constraint layout because constraint layout makes it really easy to develop applications. I'm just going to question here. Your stream quality is not so prime. Anything you can do? No. I believe this is just a streaming service that I'm on. Just bigger, not better. It's readable, but okay. Actually, you know what? I think it's already been sorted. I think that's been sorted. All right, okay, cool. Yeah, so there's different types of layouts here. We've got linear layout, which is linear layout for horizontal, which means whenever you're adding your objects or components in, they'll go side by side. You've got linear vertical, which does it vertically. I will be going into detail with most of these layouts. You can explore them if you want, but constraint layouts, typically when you're in a production environment, you'll probably be doing it under constraint layout because it makes it easier for different screen sizes to basically be adjustable or responsive to your application. So we're going to stick with constraint layout. So we're going to go up to common and palette here, and we're going to put our own text into here. So we can go into text view and drag text, and this will just put in some static text, like a string of information. And we've got text view here. And as you notice, once we've dragged that in, we can see that's popped up in our component tree here, and it's under our constraint layout. And you can see it's slightly indexed over there. It just means that it belongs to it. So the parent of this text view is the constraint layout. But we also have this red exclamation mark, and it's basically Android Studios yelling at us, telling us that this component's not constrained. And what does this mean if it's not constrained? Well, actually, I'll show you right now. Even though we've dragged it to the center of the screen, if we actually press run and we let this build and we show it here, it's actually going to spring to the top left. And this is because there's no bounds on where it should be positioned. So we're going to add some bounds to where it should be positioned. So once you click on the object, so for example, text view, which we clicked here, we can go to layout and constraint widget. And we get this represented with this wee kind of square box thing. If we click the top constraint here, what this is going to do is going to constrain or kind of anchor our object to the constraint layout. So no matter what screen size that we put this application under, it's always going to be 356 dp from the top of the display. So we're just going to put 16 instead. So we want 16 from the top, and I'll give you a quick demonstration of what that looks like by building it right now. And so what that basically means is there's 16 spacing in the margin, but as you can see, it's still anchored to the left. So we will add a constraint to the left here as well. So click on the left constraint and 16. And the reason these are in increments of 8 is just because it follows the materialize UI, which goes up into increments of 8. We'll stop the execution and run it again so that you have a demonstration of what's going on. So as you can see, we've got the 16 margin there, or constraint of 16 in each side. And no matter what screen size you use, it will always look like this in your application scaled. So it's not very informative just having text view here. So we're going to actually change the text. So if you scroll down, or you can search up here, you can search for text, and you can actually change your text here. And we're going to put happy birthday, because this, of course, is a birthday card app. Cool. So we've got happy birthday for our front end, but it's small and it's not very clear what's actually being said. So we're going to put it up to 36 in our type size, which can change the size of our fonts. SP is, so you'll notice it says SP, not pixels. Basically, this is like a scalable kind of pixel. So regardless, again, all this is to do with responsiveness. If your screen size is larger or smaller, it will scale down according to your screen size. So we've got happy birthday there. We're going to quickly drag into another text field over here, and we're going to put this from, and I'm going to put my name here because it's my birthday card to whoever's birthday it is. We're going to add 2 more constraints here. We're going to put these at 16 so we can match it down to the bottom. And again, this is pretty small, so we're going to actually put this up to 30. And it has this kind of gray color to it. I don't really like that. So we can change the color under text color and our common attributes. And we can use these properties that are predefined, like color black, and at color black here as well. And now we have happy birthday from Fabrizio. So let's go run this and see what it looks like. Sweet. So as you can see, this is our application here. Happy birthday from Fabrizio. So if you've already dealt with this kind of thing before with GUI developments, you'll notice that a lot of them are similar. So yeah. Also, one thing I need to highlight here is these exclamation marks here, these kind of yellow triangles. And it's basically Android Studio yelling at us for not following common practice. And what kind of common practice is it yelling us about? It's basically, we should, whenever we've got some sort of text in our application, so for example, happy birthday, imagine we had like 100 different happy birthday layouts, for example. So like, for example, one for one with one particular background, another with another particular background, say from Fabrizio, from Carol, from whatever, right? So a multitude of different layouts, basically. What if we wanted to change from happy birthday to Merry Christmas, for example, right? That means we would need to change every single one of those layouts. And that's not very efficient. It's going to take you ages and it's a pain. So what we can do is kind of the idea to put your head around this is kind of make this into a variable, and we can store that into a file. So if we click this yellow exclamation mark and it says hard-coded text, and it's basically what I was describing before, it's just hard-coded text. We can click this fix button, and what this will do will actually create a resource for us, and we can give it a name. So here it's already given us a name called happy birthday and the value of the happy birthday. So when we load this kind of variable or resource in, we're going to give it the value of happy birthday. And then where do we want to store this resource so we can have reference to it later? We want to store it in this file called strings.xml. And that's just the common practice, is to put all your strings, your hard-coded text into this file, strings.xml. And we'll explore that right now, actually. So if you go under your res, values, and string XML, you actually get the XML values for your resources here. So as you can see, we can see our happy birthday resource here. So I'm actually going to copy this over and make one for the from as well. So from Fabrizio, and I'm going to give it a name of from. Okay. And just to show you how to incorporate this kind of variable into your application, we're going to go back to main.today.xml from Fabrizio here. And instead of having our text hard coded into the application, we're going to put the @ sign, and then we're going to go for string /from. And from is the name that we gave our resource there. And if we were to change this from John, like in John Smith, and we went back to here, it would dynamically change it to from John instead. So it's just an easy place to access all your strings. So cool, we've got that all sorted out. So what we want next is some image for our birthday app. So if we go back to our palette and go to image view, we can drag in an image into here. But we won't do that just yet because we need to load our resource in. What image do we want? So we need to go to our resource manager, which we can find under the sidebar here, resource manager. And under drawable, which is just anything that's kind of that you can load in like a JPEG or PNG image, we can put into drawable and click on this add resources to the module. And this will just add it to our application so it can have access to the image that we're looking for. So import drawables. And I already have a PNG image that I'm looking to import. If you want the same image, you can just follow the study guide after this, after we're finished with our presentations today, and you'll be able to access this image. But of course, you can just load any PNG image that you have in your computer just for the time being. So I'm just going to click on this one, OK. And as you can see, it's loaded in there. And we don't need any qualifier type or value for the time being. We just need to load in the image. So we're going to click next and import. And under our res here, if we go under drawable, we can see that we actually have it in our application here. And so it's actually going to be stored into our application. So we're going to drag in our image view and drag it into our constraint layout. And as you can see, pick a resource. We can see our image that we imported here. And we're going to click OK. And let's just center that in a little bit. OK. So we're still getting yelled at by Android Studio for not having any constraints. So we're going to go back up to our constraints for the image and add a 0 constraint everywhere because we want this to be a background. Now, for our layout width and layout height, we are actually wanting this to match the constraints. So we're just going to say that the layout of this image view is going to match the constraints that we set for it. So it's just going to basically mean full screen. So that's cool. We've got that. We've got our image up, and let's run our application right now. And as you can see here, it's loaded the image into our application. It's not very nice though, because we've got these white bars here. So one thing that we'll need to do is we need to scale it. So if you've ever worked with like a Windows wallpaper before and it's not quite the resolution of your display, this is basically what we're doing. We can either stretch it, morph it, or put it to the top or bottom. And you can find that under this option scale type here. And if we go to the drop down here, we can have a look at all the different types of scale types. So center side, fit start, center, which blows it up. The one that I think works for us is fit center. So no, it's not fit center, center crop, that's the one. And as you can see, it looks pretty nice, it looks pretty good. It's not scaled in any weird way like any other scaling would give you, and it just crops everything and makes it look all nice. One issue though, our happy birthday and from John are actually disappeared, and that's just because, like in Photoshop or any other kind of or any other GUI development, you can have layers. So we actually want to drag our image view on top of both our text views. So we have happy birthday and from John. So now we can see the happy birthday and from John. But as we can see, black doesn't look particularly good on a dark background. So we're going to change this to color white. And I'm just going to copy that attribute over here, color white. And also, we can also give this a little bit of shadow as well. So I'm going to search for shadow, do a DX of 4, 5, and give it a shadow radius of 1, just to give it a little bit of pop. Is it going to give me that pop? DX 4, 5, 1. And for some reason it's not showing it. But this would typically it's because we not set a color for the shadow yet. Here we go. Work with too much CSS, so just assume it's going to be black. All right, okay. So now you can see we've got a little bit of shadow with our text as well. So just popped out a little bit more. Cool. So this is us almost done, and actually this would be perfectly fine if we just ran this and published it to a development phone. So as you can see here, happy birthday from John, and everything's working fine. But we still have this little missing, this orange triangle to get rid of here. And basically it's just an accessibility option that Android has. For example, no one can see, so if someone was sight impaired, they wouldn't be able to see the image. How would Android describe this image? Or if it can load the element, how would it describe the image? And we don't have anything to describe it. So we're actually just going to ignore this. So we're going to go accessibility here, and under this option here, under our image view, we're going to have a look for important for accessibility, and we're just saying it's not important. We don't need to give anybody information about what the contents of the image are. And then that's it. So the last thing I want to show you before we move on to Verinda's application is this, loading it onto an actual Android device. So if you have any problems with the driver installation, you shouldn't have any problems with that driver installation if you installed Android Studio. But let me just unplug this here and plug in a USB Type-C cable and plug my phone in. A couple of prerequisites that you need is to put your Android device into developer mode. If you get stuck putting it into Android developer mode, that's fine. I will cover that over with you later if you're once during the study jam. But mine is already in developer mode, so you can see here in Android Studio, recognize my device here, and just like the emulation, if you press the green arrow, it should install it onto your device, and you'll get like an install via USB here. See if I can change this over here. So install, I'm going to install this. And as you can see, the application actually loaded into my Android phone here. So that's everything that I wanted to cover with you guys, and I think I will pass the mic on to Rinda. So let me just change the configuration over here. 2 seconds. Rinda, are you connected?
Hi, Fabrizio.
Hi. Sweet. I'm just gonna let this. We'll hand over the mic to you.
So I'll share my screen now. All right. So Fabrizio really very well explained the layout of the Android Studio, the constraint layout, all the views and everything. So without any further delay, let's get into developing the second application, which is a dice roller app. So before making any application or basically building anything, the main thing that we should think about is what would the end product look like and how it's going to look at the end. So that's what a prototype is. Now, we saw the prototype for our dice roller app, and that has basically an image view as well as a button. So for now, we are only going to add button, and we are going to look into the image later. So I'm going to add button, and let's rename it to role. Considering all the errors that Fabrizio mentioned earlier that one gets when we add view and we don't add constraints, we are getting all of the same errors. So let's fix all of them. And let's add this add read string. All right. So we have the button up on the activity screen, but then it does not really have any functionality right now. So to add the functionality, we'll have to go to main activity.kt, which is the Kotlin file. So this is the Kotlin file, and this is where most of the work would be happening in the backend. So as you can see, there's already a lot going on over here. So I'll explain each and every single part of it line by line. So the first line is package, which basically indicates what the folder is and where the application is. The second two lines are import lines, which basically is it defines the the functionalities of the predefined elements of Android. And if you are using certain predefined elements of the Android in your program, you need to import all of the files which have those functionalities. Later, we have class main activity, which basically has all of the execution. Now, one thing to notice over here is that we don't really have a main function in this program, whereas in the previous session, it was mentioned that main function starts all the execution and it ends all the execution. So Android operates a bit differently, and it uses onCreate function, which is similar to the main function. It basically has the same function as the main function. That's a lot of function. So the parameter of the onCreate, it has the the parameter says saved instance state. So what that basically means is that it's saving the current state as a bundle, and super.onCreate basically creates that function. So then we have set content view, which has the parameter r.layout.activityMain. The thing that this function does is that it sets the content view to a particular layout. So R is basically here a class called resources. It's short for resources, which is a static class of Android, which has all of the important features and all of the important resources which are required for an Android application to work, such as layout, ID, etc., drawables. So layout is a subclass of class resources, and that's why we are using it this way. So R, which is which is a class of Android, has a subclass layout, which has an object activity main. So to use the button, we would need to set the value, or rather instantiate a variable called button of type button. And as you can see, we are getting a red error over here. The reason why we are getting that is because we have button is a predefined functionality of Android, and we haven't really imported the file which has all of it. So we are going to press Alt Shift Enter, which is going to import the file which we need to run this. And now we're going to use a predefined function called find view by ID. So basically, this function finds view from the activity, from the XML file, and we basically have to provide the parameter of the ID, that is the element, and it would find the view for us, and it would create a reference for that. So let's add it, r.id.button. Now, button is the ID of the button over here. And the reason how I know it is because if we go to activity_main.xml, you can see in the component tree that button is written over here. This is basically the ID of this button view. It can change. You can name it something different. You can name it anything. So for now, it's button. So if a user clicks on a button or they tap on a button, so Android basically has listeners. Listeners are nothing but then parts of code. They are predefined elements which basically sit and they wait and they listen for any changes in the code that happen. So as soon as a user clicks a button, they as soon as a user clicks a button, uh, I'm extremely sorry. What was I going to say? So as soon as a user clicks a button, um, wait, the set the onset click listener is activated, and the code which is inside this is run. So I'm not supposed to be getting this. So it's set on click listener. So currently, we are going to use toast to see whether our button is working or not, rather than using any text view or any other method. So a toast is basically a pop-up that appears on a screen when something happens, and it only stays there for a really short period of time. So let's define our toast. So to explain this make text, to create a toast, we need to use this inbuilt function called make text, which basically takes in three parameters: context, text, and the length or the duration for which we want the toast to appear. So context is basically this keyword which shows that this is the context that we're talking about. The second parameter is text, which we want to show on the toast. So dice rolled is a text that we want to show on the toast. And toast.length short is basically the duration for which we want the toast to appear. So now we'll make the toast show itself. The above line will only declare the toast and not show it. So the second line is really very important for the toast to show. So let's run our app, and it's going to take a while. So now we're going to see our app emulator. So when we click on the roll button, we can see a toast which says dice rolled. It only lasts there for a really short time because the length of the toast is supposed to be short. Now we'll go back to our activity main and we'll modify a text view. So if we look at a text view, we want our text to appear only and only when we have rolled the dice, as in when we have clicked the button. So as you can see in the common attributes, we have two text attributes. One is with a tool icon and one is without the tool icon. So to make sure that the text only appears once we click on the roll button, we'll leave the text view without the tool icon empty, and in the text attribute with the tool icon, we are going to enter once so that we have an idea of the text view which is present over there. So now we'll go back to our main activity and we are going to remove this toast. And now we're going to make changes to our text view. And again, we are going to use find view by ID. So now we are going to set the text view as 2. The reason why I'm putting 2 is because in activity main, we have added the text as 1, which is only visible to the developers and not when you run the app. So in main activity, when you click on the button, the text which is supposed to appear is 2. So now let's rerun the app. So now if you look at the app, you can only see the button roll and not any text. But if you click roll, you can see the value 2. I would increase the size of 2 so that it's more clearly visible. Now, when we are rolling a dice, we don't really know what the value is going to be. So that's why we are going to need a random function for that. So let's create. So our value dice roll, which would be an integer, is going to be a value between the range of 1 and 6, and it's going to be a random value. And we are going to initiate the text view with this dice roll. Now, the reason why we need the toString is because the text of the text view is supposed to be a string, and the dice roll is an integer. So that's why we would need toString to convert it into a string. Let's rerun the app now. Now, when we click the button roll, it would produce a different number every single time. It would produce a random number between 1 and 6. Now, instead of a text view, we need an image view. So we are going to delete the text, and we're going to add an image view. And we are going to take one of the avatars. So let's click on that. Now we have the constraint problem on both of them. So let's get that fixed. Right. So now we'll have to import all of the files that we need. So I've already pre-downloaded the dice images that I have, and it has all of the images of dice from 1 to 6. So let's import that. So to import that, we'll have to go to View, Tool Windows, Resource Manager, and then we're supposed to click on the plus button, and then Import Drawables. After that, I have this selected over here, dice images. And once I have this, I'll click on next, and all of these images would be downloaded, would be imported. Now we want to change the image view, and we want to make it as one of the dices. So let's click on this, and let's choose one of the dice. Now this takes the entire space, so let's make it a little shorter. In the declared attributes, in layout width and layout height, instead of using rack content, we are going to be using SPs. So we are going to use, say, 160 SP for the width and 200 SP for the height. And that makes the button visible and the dice smaller. So now we'll go back to main activity, and this is giving us an error because our text view doesn't exist anymore. So let's delete this line. Now we have the dice roll, and it has a random value between 1 and 6. So we can either have if and else conditions, which would check with dice roll for each and every value. So if it has 1, then it would show the dice image 1. If it has the value 2, then it would show dice image 2, and so on. But then that would make the code really messy. So instead of that, we'll use the when condition, which is equivalent to the switch condition of Java. So let's add that. This would take the parameter of dice roll, and then it would check all of the conditions. So if it's 1, then it would set the image as dice image 1. And I'm sorry, I have a bit of technical issue over here. So now we have to set the image. Now we have to set the image for 1. I'm extremely sorry, but then I've forgotten the command for this. So before doing this, we'll have to instantiate the image view. Of course, I completely forgot about that, and I'm extremely sorry for that. And now we are going to use image view dot set image resource, and that's going to be r dot drawable dot dice 1. Similarly, for 2, I'm just going to copy this line and paste it to save time. And that should do it. So when we rerun our app, so now when we'll roll out, when we click on roll, we get different dice images based on different random values ranging from 1 to 6. And that's our app. Thank you so much. I'll hand it over back to Fabrizio.
I think my mic is, my webcam is not working. There we go. I'm back. Thank you, Brenda. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. So, yeah, so that's us, guys. I think we've got 2 great starting apps for you to get just started with getting familiar with Android Studio and actually getting some programming experience of how objects interact with each other. Like Brenda just showed us like a great example of like using user input to get like a random number out and showing some images and like in the dice roll. That was incredibly good. So next stage for everyone here is if you want some experience actually developing this yourself, if you weren't tagging along with us, this is a great opportunity for you now to just go to this link. So I'm just going to share my screen. 2 seconds to go to this website here, g.co/android/study jams. And if you go into the Unit 1 Kotlin Basics for Android and go to sections, Android Basics, build a basic layout and add a button to your app. This will basically be covering what we just did today and give you some hands-on experience. If you've forgotten some of the things that we talked about or have got any extra questions, feel free just to ask them right now. But yeah, that's us for today. That's pretty much everything. Go to the new programming track, start the course, and have fun developing with Android. Yeah, that's us for the time being. So we'll leave it there. We're free to answer any questions right now if you guys have it, but if not, then that will be us. I'll give people like a minute or so, just in case they have any last minute questions. Oh yes, and there's in the description there's the feedback form. I don't see any questions, so I think that'll be us. No problem, Clemens. All right, cool. Yeah. We'll see you guys next session. Yeah. Next session will probably be in 2 weeks. This is a bi-weekly thing. So if you missed last time, there's the video on YouTube for the DSC Glasgow. You can just search it up on YouTube and you'll find us there. Yeah, in a couple of weeks' time, same time, same day, we'll get the next session up and running for you guys. So, but yeah, that'll be us. I want to give a big thanks to Brenda for co-hosting this with me today. It was a big help, and she did an amazing job. So I'll leave it there. All right. See you guys next time.
Thank you so much, everyone.